welcome back to a very special episode of the Women and Money Cafe. Now, what's so special about this episode, you ask? Okay, so you know that we were going to talk about board games and the life lessons and money lessons that you can get from them, but it's a bit more exciting than that because if you've been following us on Instagram, you'll have seen the photo. If you haven't seen the photo, you need to go and check it out on Instagram. And this photo has like the most amazing collection of board games. And we went and tracked down the owner of this mammoth pile of board games and asked them if they would come and join us today. So on the sofa with me, as usual, I've got Jennifer and Michelle, but we have Charlotte Wood with us today.
Oh, do you know, my husband would be furious. He better not listen to this because if he had it down as I was the owner of these games, there would be trouble. So full disclosure, it is absolutely my husband's board game collection. But obviously, what's his is mine and all that, because that's what it says in our vows, isn't it? So
All right. So for anybody that's not seen the photo, Charlotte, do you want to give us an idea of the number of games we're talking about?
oh, he could tell you exactly. Of course, he's got a spreadsheet, hasn't he? So he could tell you exactly. But as I understand it, there is about 100. I'm gonna have to ask him afterwards.
Wow.
And that's not including those are like adults games, which not that sort of adult game. Calm down. I just mean games designed for adult beings. There is also about like 30 to 40 kids games separately. So we've got two kids who are like 4 and under. So they have effectively their own board game collection. We're obviously enabled by us. So
That is an impressive collection. All right. Now, the inspiration for this episode actually came from Michelle, though. So I think it can get a bit heated in Michelle's house when it comes to board games. And Michelle was looking for some silver lining into, the mass destruction that can happen sometimes. But are there any lessons we can take away from this? And so the episode is hopefully going to make Michelle feel a little bit better about how things go down in her house. So, Michelle, just tell us a little bit about what it is like when you and your family play games.
About let's play a game sounds like a lovely idea. We all sit down with a nice drink and it's all quite calm. And generally, the games of choice are things like Monopoly, Game of Life, which all starts out quite nice and it very soon becomes really ruthless. And it usually ends up with two people ganging up on the other two individually. My youngest has been prone to cheating in the past. So she likes to sit on some money every now and again, and suddenly it appears out of nowhere. Or then they just sort of start doing their own deals on the side, which is okay because then they all just want to try and get me out because clearly I'm the financial planner and I should not have any place in winning that game. So yeah, it becomes quite ruthless. And I think we've had the conversation, Julie, that Monopoly, when we went on holiday last year, we bought the card version, Monopoly Deal.
oh, Monopoly Deal, it's good, isn't it? I like it.
It was amazing. I didn't think it'd be quite as ruthless. How
Mm.
wrong I was, because it still is quite ruthless and caused a few arguments.
Shorter spurts of ruthlessness, though. It's like a half-hour game, isn't it? So at least you're only angry at each other for a much shorter period of time.
It is, but then you become more determined. We're going to play again because I'm going to beat you this time.
No, I'm going to mess you up. Yeah, I see.
So that is how it sort of ends in our house. And then generally one person will walk out of the room, another one won't talk to the other one, and then we say we're never playing that again until a few weeks later.
Following
we
Christmas.
do. Yeah. So that about sums it up, Julie. So if I can take some, I don't know, reflection that I have taught my children something through going through this agony, that'll make me feel better.
Okay, so that's our aim for the next 30 minutes or so, is to give Michelle some encouragement and positivity. Now, what really surprised me is because we went and asked Instagram about how you feel about board games. What surprised me, everybody that got in touch with me, like, you're all really competitive. None of you like to lose. And it turns out a lot of you are quite happy to beat your children as well at the game. We're not encouraging child violence. So I was a bit taken aback by that because I am not competitive. And so I guess what I'm wondering as well is just Jennifer, you don't have children. I don't think you're a big game player, are you?
No, not so much for board games. We'd always play them around kind of Christmas time, and then I think it needs to be 12 months so that you're able to play them again with the same people. You need that cooling off period of 12 months. But yeah, we'd also have played some video games, but I have to say I think Grand Theft Auto and the likes probably doesn't teach you the best things about money management.
No, possibly not.
No, I think probably the carjacking and the mugging will certainly get you some money, but you will have to go on the run from the police. Got to weigh up if that's worth it.
Talking about doing an episode on this, what I thought is, if you can remember when you were at school, it was always when you felt like you weren't being taught something, that something was easier to learn and you enjoyed it. And so what we thought is, what lessons are there in games that we can kind of emphasize when we're playing with children or other young adults to try and instill some good ideas in there, or just give Michelle a silver lining? So a few of you got in touch with us with some suggestions and ideas, and appreciate that. Thank you very much. Jennifer and I are probably going to be coming at it a little bit more from a video game point of view. So that's like the youngest person, the oldest person on the couch. We're going to defer to our resident expert for this one on Charlotte Wood then, because your array of games is so vast.
It is vast. So like, this is the thing. So until 3 years ago, about 4 years ago, sorry, we were very much like exactly the same as what you've said, like Monopoly, like Hasbro games, like Cluedo, and kind of just thought that was the extent of like board gaming. And then we were introduced to a couple of different board games and was like, oh, okay, like, didn't know this. And then all of a sudden, before you know it, you're in, and it's like a whole other world. Like it's not underground in any stretch, but it feels like it, because unless you're in it, you don't really know it exists. And yeah, we literally went to Germany for like a 3-day annual conference. Literally just like demoed board games and board games for 3 solid days. But yeah, I would say about Monopoly, surely the biggest life lesson to take away from Monopoly is to never trust a banker. No?
Now you say that, it does come to mind, actually.
Yeah, actually. Fair, right? But this is it, isn't it? I think Monopoly is, and I was going through all of our games, and I asked my husband as well, and we've got friends who are a couple who are also big into board games. We all sort of found it at the same time together. And I said, have you got any ideas of ones that are specifically around money? We actually don't have, or in between us, many that are specifically around money. Lots of them where money is a factor or, you know, a feature of the game, but not that focus on it, not in the same way that Monopoly does, because that is almost exclusively about money building, isn't it, Monopoly? So yeah, it's interesting that like we wouldn't really ever pick that game up to play it now. But yeah, I think from that perspective, it's definitely one of the most money orientated game. I can't actually speak for the Game of Life because I've literally never played it.
Well, Game of Life, I think it's not all about money, it's about your journey of life, and it's the decisions you make. And I think that's what makes it interesting. So you have money that comes to you, so you have paydays and you have tax bills to pay as you go through. But I think one of the big things in our house is, at the beginning, you have to make a decision whether you go to university or you go to work. And you go, it's literally 2 different paths on the board, and then they converge once you've finished university. There's sort of squares you can land on, I suppose, later, which if you went to university, you get this, or if you went to work, you get this. So it shows you the different path, I suppose, and you always end up with a lower paid job if you didn't go to university.
Oh, it feels unfair these days. I feel like that's not necessarily reflective of real life anymore, I have to admit.
And I think that was one of the things that comes out, because I know when my girls play, it was always, we're going to university because we'll win. But actually, as you get later in life, it can change if you land on the right squares, and actually you're not necessarily going to win. The sad thing is, the end of the game is actually when you sort of get to what I used to call the house of death. But that's, you know, that's when you're sort of retiring and you've got nothing left. But it's who's got the most money when they get there. So money's very much involved, but also I think the decisions that we take throughout life that makes those changes. But as you say, Charlotte, there is a little bit of sort of stereotypical bits in there.
I think it's slightly anachronistic, isn't it? This idea that if you go to uni, you're going to make more money. I mean, it does give you the option to go to uni later on in life and retrain. So we've played this a few times, and we went through a phase. I think I'm okay to say this because I think it's highly unlikely that James listens to the Women and Money Cafe podcast. So James is my other half's son. And anytime we used to play Game of Life, we would sneak the policeman card out of the pack, because you could guarantee every time James wanted to be the policeman and it would have a certain effect on him that we felt was undesirable. So we just nicked the card and hid it. And now Faith's moved house and we can't find the card again. So see, the bit that always came up was always a contentious point in the game of life for us. I would have objections to it. Sophia would have objections to it. Faith would have objections to it. I think Owen would as well. Is that you had getting married and having children. Because you can have turn over cards and things happen where you have to get married and you have to have children. And like everybody said, but I don't want to get married and I don't want to have children. I don't want to have that many children. And it was
But you can end up with about 9 children, can't you?
Oh, you need a bloody people carrier. Because the little car, Charlotte, that you put all the little children in.
Just the thought of even pretending like I have more children in a game is horrifying. I don't think I can get on board, if I'm honest.
But it did open up those conversations. And I think, well, the game itself is maybe quite traditional in you can go to university, you get married, and you have children. It's opened up the conversations about living a different kind of life to what the supposed norm is, I guess.
Also, surely if you end up with 9 children, you are bankrupt by retirement, surely.
I think you get money for them, though, don't you?
Yeah.
Oh.
There's certain bits you land on where you get money for however many children you have. So, but yeah, I've had it where you have to add on an extra car because you can't actually put them all in, or they're laid sideways across the top because you couldn't sort of get them in. I know
the money that you get for having children, does that get taken away when you earn over £50,000? I'm just wondering how reflective it is of real life. Financial advisor Bants.
Oh dear. No, I'm going to add that card. I'm going to make a special card and add it in. And if anybody's got a spare policeman card, please let me know. All right. So is there anything else we can learn from the game of life?
Not sure, really. I think there is the one thing I didn't look at, which was only when we were doing the bit for this show, is there is actually also an app version. And I wonder how much that's been updated in terms of life choices. So I did a quick thing earlier and I went on your app store and I put in Game of Life and it came up Game of Life 2.
Oh.
So I don't quite know. So that might be something to go and have a look at and see if it gives you a bit more choice.
Little sidebar, Game of Life 0.20. Just a little story here. When I first met Faith, she'd gone back home for Christmas and they were all at Christmas and they were all sitting around playing the Game of Life. And Sophia, her daughter's way of letting the rest of the family know about me was she put 2 pink people in the front of the car instead of a pink and a blue person. Loving the non-verbal communication going on there. Right, so that's the game of life. According to Charlotte, what we learned from Monopoly is don't trust the bankers.
Yeah, that is a solid life lesson, though. Stand by that. But I think it's, as I say, we haven't got ones particularly about money I've got different ones that I think I'll talk about that feature money quite predominantly, but not to the extent of Monopoly. But in terms of what we've learned, so I mentioned, I think that my kids are really young, so they're on, I've got 2 kids under 4, and they've got their own board games, and they are for sure learning number skills much faster because we are a board gaming family. So I think just in terms of general, maybe not financial literacy, that's maybe a stretch at the moment, but certainly in terms of starting to understand numbers and even some basic maths in terms of we're going back to and stuff like that. They're learning that much faster because we're doing it in an interactive way. So it's really helped. My youngest, who's just turned 2, learnt his colours through a game that we have where you collect fruit of different colours depending on what colour you roll the dice. So I think it's a really great way of, I'm sure this is not news to most people, but I find it it's lovely that it's a really good way for them to learn. And for us, because we've obviously got such an extensive collection of games, we're really hoping that as they grow older, they will continue to play those with us. And I think it's a really nice way to have open communication with your family in a way that's not sit opposite me at the table and tell me what's going on with you. It's kind of more gentle way to be like, oh, I'd quite like to broach this subject, but not like directly. So I'll kind of just maybe mingle it into a game or whatever. So, I mean, this is all just a theory currently, because as I say, they're tiny. But yeah, I hope that like when I've got 2 teenage boys, it means that if we can sit down as a family and play a game, it maybe means they'll communicate more than they might otherwise do. I don't know. So not quite on topic, but that's my theory for it.
I know, I think that's a really good take on it, as it's creating a time and a space to communicate. I hadn't even thought about it from that
because
point of
they
view.
say that for men, don't they, in particular, because men find it harder to talk directly to each other, like face to face. So if there's a particular men's charity, I can't remember what it's called, where it's all about men will work on a project together, like building a crate or something, and the theory is that they will talk better between themselves when they're next to each other working on something, rather than sitting opposite each other having a coffee, which is, you know, how quite often women can just share their problems. So yeah, that's my theory behind it, but ask me again when I've got a 16 and 18-year-old how well that worked.
Right, tune back in, folks. I wonder if you could think of a couple of games off the top of your head that have really been good from a numeracy point of view for your kids.
For the young kids. So for the young kids, I don't have any older kids. So numeracy. Okay. It's to do with the dice. So it's all about dice rolling and counting, like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And most recently we've got one called What's the Time, Mr. Wolf? Not quite the same, but it is around obviously learning to tell the time. So that's what we're tackling with my 4-year-old at the moment, and that's really helping him. There's like a wolf that you have to like feed the clock if you land in certain places and stuff. But yeah, anything we've found anyway, that anything with a dice, to be perfectly honest, is all it really takes. I'm trying to think of any ones in particular for the kids. I don't know, we've got a lot of just like bingo and matching cards and stuff like that. No, I can't think of any specifically. Just, yeah, it's just, as I say, just having dice in the games that really helps.
All right. We got, I put a shout out on Instagram to see what people's experiences were. And Deck Camel, the wonderful Sarah Williams, who will be joining us for an episode soon, came back with loads of suggestions. So they are a big gaming family. What was interesting, she was talking to me about Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Oh, yeah.
Which is teaching, according to Sarah, a deep appreciation of buy low and sell high. And the customer is always right. With pretty intense lessons. And then there's one that I've not heard of called Caesar.
So no, I've not heard of that.
So I did a quick Google of it earlier, and Sarah filled me in as well. It covers unemployment, taxation, exportation, value-added manufacturing, and dyeing.
Wow.
All the fun stuff.
So sounds fun.
So it's like sort of a Roman Empire type game, but there's loads of life lessons. Maybe not one for your toddlers, I suspect.
No. That's it. I think for us as well, because we haven't got that transition stage yet where they're playing the adult game. So we've got a very defined like children's games, adults games. We definitely have some adult games which are more money oriented. And I think when I say adult games, I think I'm saying like probably 10 plus. So like not necessarily just not appropriate for my small humans. But we've got a couple that I thought I'd mention, which are more kind of like business orientated. So it's kind of like you're running different types of businesses and therefore trying to build your business. So you have to spend money on those to make it better, but then you're also trying to like increase your production line kind of thing. So I thought I'd mention the first one is also one of my all-time favorite games, not just because of its theme, but it helps. So it's called Viticulture, and you are effectively making wine, best enjoyed with, of course, wine and ideally a cheese plate too. So like you had to save your calories for that particular gaming night.
It's a great game.
Yeah, it's really great. So it's a worker placement game. So that means that you're like putting out little people to do particular things. And in the game, you own your own rustic like Tuscan vineyard, and the season, as the game goes through, like you go through the seasons of the year and you can do different things at different times of the year depending on like whether or not you're like harvesting your grapes or sowing your seeds, like sowing your grapes and stuff. And then so you have seasons past and then you're running your vineyard and you harvest your grapes, you make your wine, you're filling orders, and obviously like the orders get you money and points, like money makes points, basically. So that's kind of how you play that game, and it's all about making your winery a success. And it's not too competitive. Like, so I cope better with less competitive games. Like Monopoly is an aggressively competitive game. Like there's no getting away from it. Everyone fights over Monopoly because it's like it's been designed to make people angry. Fundamental. Viticulture is not, you're kind of just doing your own thing, but you're running your own little vineyard and you're left to your own devices. The only competition comes like trying to get to certain spaces because the spaces that you can go to are limited, for example. So that's a really good one, and it's all about like gives you like not basic business skills, but that you have to make decisions around, oh, do I spend some of the money that I've got now for improvements, which means that further down the line I can make more money. And I think that's quite an interesting like lesson to have to start thinking about things that way.
I think you've caught all of our attention with this one.
Like so
you should have, I swear to God, listeners, you should have seen our eyes light up when Charlotte mentioned wine.
It's about wine.
It's like, would we rather be property developers in Monopoly, or do we want to hit the wine? Yeah, we're going with a wine.
Yeah, and it's so much better when I'm just left. I've got my own board and my own workers, and just leave me alone. Just let me get on with my thing. And then we've got another one which is sort of a similar vein. It's not quite as good. It's definitely not in like my top 5 games.
And it doesn't have wine.
Doesn't. Next best thing, chocolate.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah. So this one's called Chocolate Factory, and you are obviously running a chocolate factory. So it's very similar in that you're kind of selling your chocolate and filling orders for chocolate to try and make money. But you also, what's quite fun about it is you have literally, so your board in front of you is a conveyor belt. And like as you go through the game, like your products move further up the conveyor belt. So you start with like cocoa bean, and then like it evolves as it goes along the conveyor belt. So it's pretty different. So yeah, that's another one. Again, quite like business oriented game. And again, I think probably like a child from 10 plus could start to get the gist of that, definitely.
All right. Do you know what these are putting me in mind of as well? Is so Owen was really into Roblox for a few years. I think he's kind of had it with it now. But he even had me playing like Airport Tycoon and all the other tycoons with him. And it is that, making all the choices. How do I make the most money? I can remember one time as well, this when he was younger, he'd obviously had the thing running is it the hopper that makes the money? So he had his hopper running on his iPad, and he went to school and he said, could you just keep my hopper going for me while he's at school all day? And like an idiot, like, yeah, sure, I could do that. And there's me popping into his iPad every so often to make sure the hopper's still going.
That's giving me like flashbacks to the 90s, like when I was a kid, and it's like, mum, you've got to feed my Tamagotchi.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking.
But isn't it smart that he's already outsourced?
Yeah.
And he's got me pushing the button.
Unpaid labour.
I know, and I think obviously when he first started getting into games like that, and when I first saw him spending money on Fortnite, it took me a while to get my head round that this is not wasting money, that this is a thing that's of value to him just because it's not physical. But it's then I didn't appreciate all the lessons he was learning as well. I swear to God, Owen in the Fortnite shop, he can bargain hunt like nobody else. So he'll go in there and he'll see a skin that he wants. Let's say the skin's 800 V-Bucks. He'll then go away and have a look at all the little deals, and he'll see like, okay, so if I buy that pack for 1,000 V-Bucks, I get some V-Bucks and I get that skin and I get some tiers. So he's all about getting maximum bang for his V-Buck. And then the other thing I didn't realize till, I don't know, we were on holiday, maybe it was about 3 or 4 years ago. And his currency conversion is unreal because he's used to converting to V-Bucks, and he can convert to whatever Roblox is. He just gets that really quickly. So if you're on holiday now, you just hunt it. Oh, you say, how much does that cost? And he tells you. It's fantastic.
That's really interesting. You're speaking a different language because we're not video gamers in any way. And obviously the boys aren't at an age yet where that's a thing in our house. So I'm like, V-Bucks? What are you even talking about?
And I've got 2 girls, so I am totally out of that one.
Right, so Jennifer, you know what I'm talking about, don't you?
I do, yes. But then sometimes my nephews will look at me and discuss things with V-Bucks, and I'm like, I have no idea how much that translates to actual money.
So of the video games that you play then, Are there any life lessons, obviously, apart from the ones that we don't want to be adhering to in GTA? Are there any life
Yeah,
lessons to be picked up?
yeah, I'd probably say Grand Theft Auto is not your best bet if you're looking for ways to stick by the book for how to live your life. Not massively. There would have been more so with things like The Sims when I was younger, where you did get a budget, and from that you would then like grow your house and your lifestyle and everything thereafter. And then anything on the phone, if it's similar to, I think it's one called Township, which is similar to what Farmville used to be, where you would, you get so much in your budget, you've got to wait until it replenishes again until you can do other things. So you've got to think of ways in which you can, I guess, maximize what you're able to get quicker. So in theory, you can grow quicker.
Right now, I've never actually played The Sims.
I did.
So in a nutshell, tell me what the point of The Sims is.
There's none. There is no real point. You get
The beauty is there is no point.
Oh, okay. I think I'm having an existential crisis for that. If you can't tell me what the point is, what might I learn if I started playing The Sims?
I would say, on the one hand, if someone has played it a long time ago, probably how to trap people within their house whenever they were building it, or how to communicate and how to grow and get better things in your house.
All right, being able to communicate, I'd say that was a pretty important skill to have. One to be encouraged, not so much trapping people inside the house. I think we'll move on from that one.
Questionable people play The Sims.
This could get dark really quickly.
Yeah, and I'm holding back, by the way, because there is one thing I know how to do in The Sims. It's to do with the vegetarians. But let's move on. Those that are laughing, I assume you know what I mean. Right, Michelle, rescue us, move us along.
Okay, so to slightly change it then, I found a game which actually, when I was looking at Game of Life, this one came up. Well, I'm actually going to play it because I want to see what it does. So it's called Invest Stock Market Simulator. Oh. And the premise is you've left school, you've left uni, and you're going to be a portfolio manager. And you have to do it all. You hire analysts, you've got to buy and sell, you get annual targets. And then as you get successful or not, you can buy your own property. And for me, if someone's interested in investing, so if you've got a young teenager interested in investing, that's probably quite good fun to play with.
Though I feel like there's a danger there as a parent of like small humans who I've got to like try and navigate career options. Do I want to release 2 more white male fund managers out into the world? Like, no. I want them to have access to those types of games. Like, I'm not sure I do. Thinking they can outperform the market. Like, calm down, boys.
I think, well, I actually did some mock interviews with my girls' school with the 6th form students who are going to uni or they're applying for jobs. And a couple of them, as soon as they found out what I did, was like, right, okay. So if I wanted to do this with money, and I said, but the thing is, the dangerous thing is doing it with your money. If you don't know, whereas this at least simulates something for you, I guess. So it gives them an option. And as someone who was a female investment manager, hopefully that gives them a bit of a twist.
What's it called, Michelle?
It's called Invest Stock Market Simulator. And it's ad-free. That was something that did actually appeal to me because I hate the ads. But I just think it's worth a go.
I think what might be interesting about that as a learning experience is getting to understand how much your things around money are affected by your emotions, because actually I know it's not real money and that's kind of the point, so it takes the sting out of it. But maybe like if people are playing that, they can be like, oh, actually this has really pissed me off or whatever, and they might think, oh, I'm so glad it's not real money, you know what I mean? Yeah. So actually it might have the impact of making people have slight better self-awareness around like how much these sorts of decisions are going to affect like their emotional well-being, because obviously we know that people can get really stressed and upset and it can be really damaging like if they make these decisions.
And I think also, yeah, I mean, that is very much because it's showing you without your money. But I think also it shows you've got people out there who I expect we've all come across at some point who think it's really easy to make money. And that these things, why can't you just make me money? Why doesn't that happen? And why do I lose money? And so I think, because it says in the description, it has the, stock market falls. Actually, what does that mean? And how does that impact your physical money? So it might give maybe some people a little bit more understanding rather than thinking it's really easy.
I want to go with this. I've written it down. I'll put it. Don't worry, everybody. I'm going to put in the show notes all the games that I've got mentioned. But I'm hooked on this one. I want to go and play it now. But we have to finish the episode, don't we?
That's why I downloaded it earlier, ready.
Oh, that's cheating. So have you had a go?
No, I haven't been on it. So I literally did it and then thought, no, I'll be good and I won't touch it till later. But I did write down, so obviously, a description and have a look at the pictures and stuff. So.
All right. So everybody listen to this. If you fancy this one, go and download it and let's get a little league table together to see who can lose the most money.
No, lose. I like that. Yeah.
Right.
It's a good competition.
See, things get slightly twisted in our house when we're playing board games. It doesn't get competitive, it just gets weird. And that's because Owen, since he was little, as soon as he learnt the rules of a game, he wanted to change them. Even a game of noughts and crosses could go weird. And then you've got Sophia. Sophia quite likes to cheat, but not in the traditional way. She likes to cheat in a way to help one specific person win. So you're sitting down and you've got Owen and Sophia making up these weird, wacky rules with their own agenda, but none of it's for themselves. And I just walk away. I never actually know how you're meant to play a game because they've just been feeding nonsense into my head.
I think maybe that's one of the big takeaways, I think, with playing with my 4-year-old in particular, is actually like learning how to lose is quite a big thing, I think. So he's really going through, and I think this is completely age appropriate, but he really struggles to lose games. And we very much have to have conversations because we don't go easy on him. What I mean by that is we don't not like competitive with him, but like we don't let it like when we
don't let him win.
Yeah. When we're playing Ludo, for example, if I land on him, I'm like, well, you've got to go home, kiddo. That's the rules of Ludo. Like, that's how it works. I'm not like, oh, don't worry, like, or anything, because that's the game. That's how you play. But yeah, he definitely struggles with losing and gets disappointed. But I think that's, the earlier we can learn how to lose games and not be bitter about it and be a sore loser, the more we can enjoy these things. So,
and it's interesting because this made me think of as well is it's okay to quit. There's loads of you playing the game and one person's got bored. Well, who says you got to see it through to the end? Just stop and move on and go and do something else that's fun.
That does happen with Monopoly, doesn't it? Because has anyone else played like a 3-hour Monopoly epic?
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't need to be that long, does it?
No, and it goes on forever.
Does everyone else's games just sort of taper off in a way that is just like two people are like, I'm bored, get this over and done with so I can go and have a beer? Because I don't know if I've ever really played a game of Monopoly to a proper end. It's kind of just sort of tapers off and you go, right, well, you have all my money, like I've gone bankrupt or whatever. I think
the Geneva Convention's probably got something against that. I don't think you're meant to do that.
I have with my cousin, he cannot lose a game. And all through our childhood, he would have a major hissy fit every time he lost. And bearing in mind, his sister and I are both female, that was obviously a big thing for him. So even now, playing Monopoly, if it's the three of us, it will end in tears generally because we won't ease up and we won't go away until we've beat him.
Yeah. Have you ever done anything wildly inappropriate? Well, hang on a minute. I don't mean wildly inappropriate with board games. Let me backtrack slightly. But what I mean is I distinctly have a memory of playing like Monopoly with my dad's family one Christmas in like my late teen years where we introduced like shot Monopoly. So it's like every time someone lands on one of your properties, you've got to do a shot. I did not see that going through to the end. Got bad.
I think never done that, just figured out how to make Monopoly bearable.
Yeah.
You're all passed out on the sofa.
I'm down with that one.
No one's angry then.
I'm loving that idea.
It's all fun and games until everyone's landing on your property.
Because we come back to Monopoly as well. I got a message from Debbie as she was talking about, so she's got younger children, but what she's observing how as he's getting older, his tactics around the game are evolving. And I just thought, I can remember doing that myself when I played Monopoly. At the start, I was happy with Old Kent Road. Like, oh, I can buy a property. Impulse purchase, because it was the first one there. And then as I got older, I was like, okay, you make it around the board. And I had this, obviously, there's something about risk assessment going on. Because while I coveted Park Lane in Mayfair, I would play it safe and I would go in the middle. So I'd be having your Bow Streets and your Piccadillys and what have you.
Yeah.
So my attitude to risk was balanced.
I agree, because I always went for green and yellow, and you want 2 sets next to each other because then people have got to
Absolutely.
run the gauntlet, right? That's the rules.
Yeah.
Oh.
Absolutely, but I think that even relates to, if you were to look at it in like a kind of almost a buy-to-let sense, you get some people who covet the really big house and that's what they want to buy, 1 buy-to-let or 2 really big buy-to-lets. Whereas see if you got the people who bought 6 or 9 of the smaller ones for the same cost, they'd absolutely wipe the floor with you in Monopoly.
Right, so my old Kent Road strategy was fine. I just needed about 6 of them.
Just needed all of them, everyone else. All 3 other sides, you'd be fine.
All right. So, Michelle, in your research and experience, did you come up with any other games that you think we need to be checking out?
Well, there was one that came up, which I haven't actually played, but it seems to come up as one that for money skills and financial literacy, which is called Cashflow 101. It was created by the author of the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it's marketed as the game that can change your life for financial literacy.
Question, is it CPDable?
Not sure, but we could have a look at that because that could be quite good fun.
Right, Cashflow 101.
It is an actual board game, and you can also get the app version because I had a look. I've never heard of it. It's not something I've seen.
All right. Okay, listen, everybody. One of us will be going and checking this out, and we'll be reporting back into you whether you can buy this game instead of getting a financial advisor. So we'll report back and let you.
So I had a quick look, and it's almost like different segments do different things, but yeah, it's probably something when I've got a bit more time to have a look at. Maybe we need to set up a virtual one and we play it between us.
All right, that's the Women in Money Cafe Christmas party taken care of. And because we're remote, it can't actually resort to physical violence.
If it's the Christmas party, can we play short Cashflow 101? Or is there...
Absolutely.
There's thumbs ups coming my way, so it's fine.
Oh, yeah. You want an invite to the Christmas party?
I
think
do.
so. I think so. So, Charlotte, is there any other games that made it to your list that you think our listeners need to know about?
Well, so not specifically about money, but I did think about this in terms of, life management, maybe. So I was thinking about how life isn't just about the money, right? Like we know that. So it's all about managing all of our resources. So our physical and mental energy, our emotional capacity, our time, our money, yes, our social capital, like all of these things. And we have to juggle, I think we experience that more and more the older we get, right? I have to be careful about where I'm using my energy resources. And like I was saying before about like my kids talking at me too much, like I have to conserve how much I can talk to other human beings and stuff like this. So the reason I say this is because I was thinking there's a couple of games that really jumped out at me that are about maybe have 4 or 5 different types of resources, and you're constantly making decisions and strategic decisions around how you spend your resources. So that's kind of how I tied it in. Was because I feel like that's kind of the juggle with life, right? I'm at the moment, I'm renovating an office, and constantly it's but it would save me time if I spend this money, but then it would save me money if I spent this time. And it's just stuff like that. That's just life, right? The 2 games that I thought of in particular are Catan, which is probably the most famous one that I've mentioned. It's kind of like a good starter game if you're going to get away from kind of the more traditional monopolies, etc. And it's where you take on the role of settlers and you score points by growing your settlement. But the reason that I mention it is I can't actually remember, maybe 4 or 5 different types of resources in that game, and you have to like collect them and then spend them to either build cities or settlements or roads, and you're trying to gain points by building basically. So that's quite a good resource management game. It's quite a good one, I think, again for younger kids. So I reckon we could probably try that with my 4-year-old in a year, 18 months. So it's because it's not too complicated. And the other one is quite a recent purchase of ours, but I really, really love it. It's really cute. So it's called Flamecraft, and it's about these teeny cute dragons. I know it's really like ridiculous, but they are adorable. And they basically run shops in a town. Like there's a bakery and there's a butcher. a florist shop, and basically you collect all your again, like different types of resources, and you have to collect them so that you can cast enchantments, and it's a kind of like ingredients to a potion, and that's it. Yeah, basically you have to meet certain goals and complete certain enchantments to try and win the game. But it's really, really cute and not that complicated. So yeah, I think just generally resource management as a concept is in loads and loads of games. I just picked 2. So no, not specifically about money, but I think about juggling lots of different things. So to get this thing, I need to get this thing first, etc. And so just a bit more strategic thinking.
All right. Thank you very much for that. So just kind of starting to wrap things up then, I will put a note to all the games that we've mentioned in the show notes. What I've taken away from this is, I think Charlotte's, the point you made near the start about creating a space actually to communicate as a family. That, I would never have thought of that. And I think that's a really big takeaway, is that it does create that. And it seems to be a theme that's coming out is actually it's decision making. Seems to be the one thing that all of them have got in common. I mean, okay, so we've got the numeracy skills, we've got the money skills, the life skills, but it's ultimately it's about how do we make decisions. So Michelle, you have a choice stroke decision next time you're playing with the family about how you're going to respond and react. So empowered with this knowledge, how might things be different?
Well, I might keep all this to myself as a secret, so I get to use these things. The decision making, I think, definitely comes into it. But in my head now, I have a plan for Monopoly that I'm getting all the lower properties and I'm just going to work my way around that way. And if all else fails, I'm going to go to the shops because they're almost 18 now, so we're good.
I mean, they're basically 18. That counts.
Well, one's only just below, but she's definitely found alcohol, so we're good. You know, I think that's going to be the way to manage it, but it gives you a different perspective on what they've learned from playing them. And they have learned things. And as you said, Charlotte, you know, I never thought about it before, but it does give us that space to talk because we do sit there and they do start talking about what's gone on, what they're doing. And that's really nice. It is a nice time.
And again, we're not there yet, obviously, with our kids being so small, but I think also it's time away from phones and screens and gaming, like video gaming. Really, really hope we can get them to play with us as they grow up. I'd hate to lose them to screen. And to an extent, I know that they will, of course, like they are part of all of our lives. But yeah, I think it's good to be doing something slightly physical, you know, that's not on a screen. Like, I think that's really good.
That's why we take them on holiday with us. So that's why we try and phone card versions, because we can all sit round in the evening and we do every night play games. And that's probably one of my favourite times of the year.
I've got some holiday game recommendations, like little ones that you can pack. I'll do that later.
I have to send them through to me, Charlotte.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of games there and a lot of different experiences. And it turns out that a lot of the Women in Money Cafe crowd are also competitive. So I seem to be an anomaly here, but that's just because I'm the nice one. So
I don't think this is true. I want to test this theory.
Shush, Charlotte.
I think you have told yourself a lie for however many years that you're not competitive because that feels better for you. But actually, deep down inside, like, I don't think it's a true story, Julie, and I'm testing it.
Right, we will put it to a test at some point. Charlotte and I will play a game together, all right? And we will report back on how it went. You can even choose the game, Charlotte.
Ooh, excellent.
Right, so before I got derailed, I was talking about being nice. What would be a nice place to end is you, the listeners, you people are really lovely and really nice. So I've had a bizarre experience today that I actually met one of the listeners in a cafe. So Karen, it was so lovely to meet you. Thank you very much for that. But then also Ekane65. We really like Ekane65. She left us a lovely review on Apple, and it says, this podcast has helped me to make real changes with confidence. Oh yeah, that's why we're here. So can we say thank you for the review? And if you're feeling a little bit guilty because you also listened to the podcast and you haven't left us a review, good news, you can assuage your guilt by just going and leaving us a little review now. Thank you very much. So it just remains for me to say thank you to Michelle for joining me.
Thank you. It's been fab.
All right, Jennifer.
No, thanks for having me.
And the wonderful Charlotte Wood.
Oh, thanks. I've really enjoyed it.
All right. And thank you to all of you for listening to us as well. Take care. Till next time.